What up, everybody? I am your boy King Richard, aka the God of Rap. You already know from Creative Minds Entertainment. That's KME. If you didn't know, I bet you know now. Special shout out to J Queen the Goddess, my partner in rhyme. Yo, we got this amazingly weird story. And when I say amazing, I don't mean in a positive way. I mean in a negative way, and amazing as in I can't believe it, right? We're talking about, I'm going to just roll the clip.
Yeah, 5 and a 14-year-old suffered gunshot wounds. The 14-year-old suffered a gunshot wound to the chest, but is expected to be okay. Both of the vehicles on Saturday stopped here at Keamy Road after the shooting, and both drivers are facing attempted murder charges. Sheriff Bill Leeper says around 6 p.m. on Saturday, two vehicles, a Nissan Murano driven by 43-year-old Frank Allison of Callahan and Dodge Ram pickup truck driver driven by 35-year-old William Hale of Douglas, Georgia, were both driving northbound on US 1 coming from the Jacksonville area.
Let me just say this real quick. This is a horrible situation, right? Did you notice when the reporters spoke about the men involved, or should I say animals in this case? And the reason I call them animals because no sane human, especially a father, would get into this type of altercation. Not when there are lives at stake. You get what I'm saying? Especially underage children. So what I don't understand is what I'm looking at, right? What I'm hearing from the newscasters is I'm not hearing any mention of their race. Red flag number one. It seems like if there is not a minority involved in the altercation or the situation or the crime or what have you, the news does not mention their race. And yes, as you can see clear as day, these are two white fathers, right? Two Caucasian Americans, two European Americans, what have you, whatever you want to call them, whatever they classify themselves as, right? And often you'll hear a lot of dog whistling, a lot of gaslighting, a lot of hidden double talk and speak from political leaders, political affiliates, right? About whatever the race may be. Not one mention of the race if it's not a minority. So every time it's the dominant population, especially if it's a male, you don't hear anything about the race. Why? Gotta ask yourself, Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative, does not matter. It's all a game, back and forth, both sides slaying the same game. Same game. Let's get back to it.
With multiple passengers. Witnesses described the incident as a wild game of cat and mouse.
I mean, driving reckless, slamming on brakes in front of him. I couldn't get caught up there, both hauling butt.
At some point, Allison, the driver of the Murano, began firing shots at Hale in the Dodge Ram, striking a 5-year-old little girl in the right leg who's riding in the back seat, and he sped away. That's when Sheriff Leeper said the pickup truck sped up to the Murano and fired more shots back.
Do you understand what you just heard? Do you understand what you just heard? We have two grown men shooting back and forth at each other with children in the car. Two grown men, two fathers, putting their children in this predicament, playing with their lives, and the kids end up shot. Now, could you only imagine if these were black men? This story would be everywhere. Huge, right? And it would be an indictment on black fathers. A further indictment on black fathers, because we already know the stigma with black fathers. They were the worst fathers of all time. Even though statistics show we're the best fathers in the country. But it's okay for them to do this. It's okay for them to do this. And guess what? Their own people are not going to call them out. They're not going to call out white men. They're not going to call out Caucasian Americans. They're not going to call out European Americans. They're just going to call them
bad men at worst.
Both men were charged with attempted murder and bonded out of jail.
Wild animals were able to bond out on attempted murder. Now, I don't know the law in this particular state, and I'm not going to act like I'm some professional lawyer or some type of. I'm very ignorant of a lot of laws, like most Americans are. There's no way you can know the law in every state, in every city, in the whole. You just can't. Even very well educated lawyers still don't know the law everywhere. So expecting an everyday American to know the law everywhere is crazy to me. So that's a disclaimer right there. However, what I do know is I know people with less crimes, personally, trust me, personally, that couldn't even bond out, didn't have a bond. So when you come talking about white privilege does not exist, I grew up around white people before I grew up around black people. To tell someone who is not in the dominant population that privilege, white privilege, specifically does not exist, that's crazy. Of course, if you are already receiving something without working for it, you don't acknowledge it or notice it. That's common sense, right? And like I said, I'm not one of these race hustlers. I'm not one of these black people or black men that think every black person is a victim of racism in some form or fashion. And I'm not one of those people. I'm not a Black Lives Matter supporter regardless of what black people do. That's not what I do. That ain't me. I've never said free anybody black that I knew or thought was guilty. That's stupid to me. How can I advocate for positivity and fairness and then say,
well, when it comes to people that look like me, we should get a pass?
That's stupid. That's hypocritical. Okay? So what I don't understand is, why aren't more white people coming out and speaking about bad white people? Notice All Lives Matter did not exist until Black Lives Matter did. So that was a direct insult to the idealism of Black Lives Mattering. Duh, you don't think we can understand that? You don't have to spit in my face for me to know that I'm being disrespected. I can tell by your aura. And so these men should be charged to the full extent of the law. They shouldn't have got bail, especially. Both of them attempted murder.
But they got the complexion for protection.
But you want to tell me there's no such thing as racism. There's no such thing as white privilege. There's no such thing as favoritism. But I can see it right here. Blah. All I'm asking is, why is the law not applied the same to all men, to all women, to all children? Why does gender or ethnicity or race have to come into play? I don't understand. And then you say it doesn't, but we've had a million cases where it does. I don't understand it. It's really not that difficult. If a black man commits a crime and a white man commits that same crime, a Native American commits that crime, and an Asian commits that crime, and a Mexican, surely they should all get punished the same, right? We talk about content of character, but apparently the government and a lot of the population has forgotten that. I judge people based on their character. I see your color. Our differences is what really makes us great. That's not the problem. We're born different for a reason. But what I don't understand is why the law has to be applied differently based on color. That's stupid. That's dumb. That's idiotic. That's illogical. So let's call this situation what it really is.
White on white violence. White on white crime.
Which, if I'm not mistaken, is in the high 80s or early 90s.